Well, welcome back, everyone. Well, my guest I've known probably for over a decade. We run into each other on the streets of Saratoga every once in a while at one of these events. Most frequently on common ground, we see each other there. So the other couple of weeks ago, I was in there, and Rick was in there, and he was talking to somebody, and I went over, and the conversation we had, I just thought to myself, we're going to have an interview with Rick about what he does for a living, and you're going to find out what I'm talking about in a minute. So this is Rick Wirth. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Rick is a private investigator, and there's so many ways we could go with this conversation, right? But let's just start with what a private investigator does. Now, it's inherent in the title, but what categories do people usually call a private investigator for in needing your services?
I get calls for civil cases, matrimonial cases, criminal cases, personal injury cases. People from the private sector call me, attorneys call me. Sometimes a retired judge might call from time to time. So it's a wide spectrum of different individuals that contact me. Corporations call me.
Yeah, sure.
So if someone has a situation where they want to know the truth, they would call me. And then, you know, they want peace of mind also. They want to know what the facts are.
Right, yes.
So,
sure. You know, outside of the fact, you know, you're so tempted to say, you know, you never know who's watching, especially in an era of Big Brother and stuff like that. But what you're talking about tends to be a lot more serious than people think, right? Matrimonial ones, probably a category everybody's heard about. Oh, this person's cheating on me, right? So they want to get to that. But it's not the act so much that they're cheating. It's the act that that person wants to find the truth out, which in many ways can be a very complicated process, right?
Yep. Each investigation is very, it is a process.
Yeah.
And we tailor the needs of the investigation for what the person really wants to know. And it's a very serious matter, and I take each one very serious, because an individual in a private case would be inviting me into their world.
Yes, right, sure.
And it's a very sensitive thing. So from the first meeting of an individual, when they sit down with me and talk to me and tell me what their situation is, they're actually inviting me into their life.
Yeah.
And then
well, of course, that then that can be incredibly emotional, right?
From time to time, it's very emotional, and a lot of times you do see crying. People are emotionally involved, and people want to know what the truth is. So, from time to time, I actually explain to them, you know, once I get involved with this, do you really want to go through with this? Because you will know what the truth is, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Wow, you know, that is such an important point. I asked Rick before we went on air, you know, there were a couple of case histories, the extent to which people will try to deceive other people. Now, you know, if you're talking about a criminal case, that could be any number of different things. Sometimes it's insurance fraud. You know, you hear about the classic one, the person broke their arm, and then all of a sudden there's video of this person skiing in, you know, the Alps or something like that. One story you did tell me, though, you know, there's an inherent sort of humor in some of this stuff that you can't escape sometimes, because it's just so unusual. Well, tell the one about Japan.
Well, in regarding that case, that was a matrimonial case, and basically what happened was the wife called me up and says, listen, I have an inkling that my husband is seeing someone. So can I sit down with you and consult with you about this? I consult with a lot of people on a lot of cases. And I sat down with her, and I says, okay, you know, and let's start the investigation and the process. So I got into that case, and we found out that he was going to Kennedy Airport because the wife was dropping him off, actually, at Kennedy Airport to catch a flight. She got the itinerary, and on that itinerary was Japan. And she actually had the itinerary, and she says, I really believe he's going to Japan. So fine, you know. So we had him in our sights, and we had the video on him. And we were about 100 yards away, but it looked like we were you and me, and that's how close we were. And he was, after she dropped him off,
At the curb.
At the curb, he was standing there with his luggage, and she disappeared. and now he's on his phone. And we're watching him, and he's not going into the terminal. So this was incredible. So we're there, and before you know it, a female pulls up in a vehicle, and they both, he comes to the window, actually, and kisses her hello, gets into the vehicle with his luggage, and they take off. And we actually trailed them, and they actually came upstate New York. And he was upstate New York for a week with his with this other woman.
I'm sorry to laugh about this. Busted.
Well, the best part basically was not for him, but I mean it was a little entertaining because when the girlfriend actually dropped him off
at the airport
with his luggage, and now he's on the cell phone again, probably calling his wife, "I'm here, honey." And you could actually see his lips say, "I'm here, honey." And basically his wife came, and his wife knew what the story was. And she actually slapped him.
Yeah, I bet.
And she was very upset, of course.
Well, there it is. There's a certain amount of humor in the story just because it's human nature, I think. But it, the result, of course, is very serious. One other story on the other side of the coin, a missing person story.
Yes.
That one about the person who actually went to Alaska, right?
Right. Yeah. I was hired to locate someone's son, and that was a very lengthy investigation from the time when I arrived, and I found out that there was a possibility that this person was in Alaska. And so my clients wanted me to go, and I went to Alaska, and it was a small fishing village, and I don't want to mention any names.
Yeah, of course not. No.
But it was quite interesting because I found him in a cannery working after 5 days. And from the time when I got into Alaska to take the cab from Alaska into town, all right, and this is where avalanches took place. It was incredible, the habitat, and just to do that and to come into a city of a small fishing village, where just the only thing that mattered was king salmon, fish.
Sure. And the cannery,
and
right.
the canneries, and they processed fish.
Right.
And that's where I found him. I found him working after it was the 4th cannery I went to, and I found him working, actually taking fish off of a vessel.
Right.
Bringing it off of the vessel, and I had him in my sights, and the family didn't want him to know that I found him.
Yes.
I wanted to talk to him so bad,
yes.
but no, I had to do what my clients wanted me to do.
Well, you know what?
He was alive and well.
Yes, I was going to make that point, and I'll just reiterate that point, that it wasn't, when Rick found this person and notified the family, all the family really wanted to know was that he was safe, which is just, so many reasons. Rick, you live in a fascinating life, you really are.
Right.
He even mentioned to me once the person that he was actually investigating, he was in the same elevator with this person. Oh, you never know.
No.
But I think, you know what, just closing, I just want to remind our viewers that if you need these kinds of services, just make sure you're serious, because the truth hurts sometimes. And if you're out there and you're trying to find the truth, it does bring some peace of mind, as you were saying, right. But also the course or the path that you have to take to get there can be complicated.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, thanks so much for coming in, and I'll see you up at Uncommon Ground and tell me more stories, okay?
Over a cup of coffee.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.